In the early 16th century, the Aztec Empire stood as a dominant force in Mesoamerica, a civilization rich in culture, power, and tradition. Its capital, Tenochtitlan, was an architectural marvel, a metropolis built on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. The empire was a tapestry of conquered city-states, all paying tribute to the central power in Tenochtitlan. Moctezuma II, the Huitlatoni, ruled this vast domain with a combination of divine authority and military might. His palaces were opulent, filled with exotic animals, lush gardens, and countless attendants. However, beneath the surface of unity, resentment simmered among the subjugated peoples. Many provinces chafed under the heavy burden of tribute and the constant demand for sacrificial victims. Omens and prophecies had begun to trouble the Aztec leadership, speaking of a great change to come. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the Spanish age of exploration was in full swing, driven by God, gold, and glory. In 1519, a determined and ambitious conquistador named Hernán Cortés set his sights on the rumored riches of the mainland. Defying the orders of the governor of Cuba, he assembled a small expeditionary force. His fleet consisted of 11 ships, carrying around 500 soldiers, 13 horses, and a few crucial cannons. Upon landing on the Yucatan Peninsula, the Spanish had their first violent encounters with the local Maya peoples. From one of these encounters, Cortés acquired a vital asset, an enslaved woman named Malintzin, later known as La Malinche. She spoke both Nahuatl and a Mayan dialect, becoming an indispensable interpreter and cultural advisor. Cortés formally established a settlement, La Villarica de la Vera Cruz, to create a legal basis for his expedition. To quell any thoughts of retreat among his men, he made the audacious decision to scuttle his ships. This act sent a clear message. There was no turning back. Victory or death were the only options. News of these strange, bearded men and their powerful weapons soon reached Moctezuma in Tenochtitlan. The emperor was deeply troubled, uncertain if these newcomers were men or gods fulfilling a prophecy. He dispatched emissaries bearing magnificent gifts of gold and turquoise, hoping to appease the strangers and persuade them to leave. These gifts, however, had the opposite effect, inflaming the Spaniards' desire for wealth. Cortés began his arduous march inland, a journey that would take him through difficult terrain and hostile territories. His first major challenge was the powerful city-state of Tlaxcala, a traditional enemy of the Aztecs. The Tlaxcalans fiercely resisted the Spanish invasion, leading to a series of brutal and costly battles. Spanish steel, crossbows, and cavalry proved devastating against the Tlaxcalan obsidian-bladed weapons. After suffering heavy losses, the Tlaxcalan leaders decided to forge an alliance with Cortés against their common enemy, the Aztecs. This alliance was a pivotal turning point, providing Cortés with thousands of skilled warriors and logistical support. With his new allies, Cortés marched on the city of Cholula, a major religious center loyal to the Aztecs. Fearing a trap, the Spanish and Tlaxcalans launched a preemptive and brutal massacre of the Cholulan nobility and citizens. The massacre sent a shockwave of terror across the region, demonstrating the ruthlessness of the invaders. Finally, on November 8, 1519, the conquistadors and their allies arrived at the Great Causeway leading to Tenochtitlan. They were awestruck by the sight of the floating city, with its towering temples, clean streets, and bustling canals. Moctezuma II, in a display of imperial splendor, came out to greet Hernán Cortés personally. The emperor welcomed the Spaniards into the city, offering them lodging in one of his father's palaces. This peaceful reception was a calculated risk by Moctezuma, who hoped to learn more about the Spaniards' weaknesses. The Spaniards were guests, but they were also acutely aware of their precarious position, surrounded by hundreds of thousands of Aztec warriors. Sensing a potential trap, Cortés made a bold move. He took Moctezuma hostage within his own palace. For several months, Cortés attempted to rule the empire through the captive emperor, issuing orders and collecting gold. The situation grew increasingly tense as the Aztec nobility became restless and resentful of the Spanish presence. A new crisis emerged when a rival Spanish force, led by Panfilo de Narvaez, arrived on the coast to arrest Cortés. Cortés was forced to leave Tenochtitlan with a portion of his troops to confront this new threat. He left his trusted but hot-headed lieutenant, Pedro de Alvarado, in command of the city. Through a combination of surprise and diplomacy, Cortés defeated Narvaez's larger force and convinced most of the soldiers to join him. Back in Tenochtitlan, Alvarado made a catastrophic decision during the festival of Toxcatl. Fearing an uprising, he ordered a massacre of the unarmed Aztec elites who were participating in the ceremony. The unprovoked slaughter enraged the Aztec population, who rose up in a massive, citywide revolt. When Cortés returned with his reinforced army, he found the city in open rebellion and his men under siege. The Spanish tried to have Moctezuma pacify his people, but he was struck down and killed. Accounts differ on whether he was killed by the Spanish or by the Aztecs who felt he had betrayed them. With their emperor dead and the city against them, the Spaniards' position became untenable. On the night of June 30th, 1520, Cortés ordered a desperate nighttime retreat from Tenochtitlan. This disastrous escape became known as La Noche Triste, or the Sad Night. The Aztecs attacked the fleeing column from all sides, on the causeways and from canoes on the lake. Hundreds of Spanish soldiers and thousands of their Tlaxcalan allies were killed or captured. Much of the looted gold and treasure was lost to the depths of Lake Texcoco. A battered and broken Cortés reportedly wept under a tree at the scale of the defeat. The survivors limped back to the safety of Tlaxcala, where they were surprisingly welcomed by their allies. The Aztecs had a chance to wipe out the Spanish for good, but they did not pursue them relentlessly. A new, more aggressive emperor, Cuitlahuac, was chosen to lead the Aztec resistance. However, a far more insidious enemy had arrived with the Spanish: smallpox, a disease to which the indigenous population had no immunity, began to ravage Tenochtitlan. It killed a vast percentage of the population, including the new Emperor Cuitlahuac. Within weeks, the epidemic decimated the Aztec leadership and military, creating chaos and despair. While the Aztecs were dying, Cortés was methodically planning his revenge and the conquest of the city. He consolidated his alliances with other native groups who were eager to see the Aztecs fall. His most brilliant strategic move was ordering the construction of a fleet of 13 small warships, brigantines de tenor. These ships were built in pieces and then carried overland by thousands of porters to the shores of Lake Texcoco. The final Aztec emperor, the young and courageous Cuauhtémoc, prepared the city for a desperate defense. In May of 1521, Cortés launched his final assault on Tenochtitlan. The newly assembled brigantines gave the Spanish control of Lake Texcoco, a decisive advantage. They were able to blockade the city, cutting off all supplies of food and fresh water. The siege of Tenochtitlan began, a brutal, grinding conflict that would last for 93 days. The Spanish and their allies launched relentless attacks along the three major causeways. The Aztec defenders fought with incredible bravery and desperation, refusing to surrender. They used their knowledge of the city to set ambushes and fight from rooftops and canals. Cortés adopted a slow, destructive strategy, advancing, destroying every building, and filling in canals. This prevented the Aztecs from using the buildings for cover and allowed the Spanish cavalry to be more effective. Inside the city, the inhabitants were suffering from starvation, thirst, and the ongoing smallpox epidemic. Despite the horrific conditions, Cuauhtémoc and his warriors refused every offer of surrender. The fighting became street to street, house to house, as the attackers slowly tightened their grip. The Tlaxcalans and other allies of the Spanish unleashed their pent-up hatred for the Aztecs, committing widespread atrocities. Finally, on August 13th, 1521, the last pocket of resistance in the Tlatelolco market district was overrun. Cuauhtémoc attempted to escape across the lake in a canoe, but was captured by a Spanish brigantine. His capture marked the definitive end of the Aztec resistance and the fall of the empire. The once magnificent city of Tenochtitlan was a smoldering ruin, filled with the dead. The conquest was a result of many factors, not just Spanish military superiority. Disease played an enormous, perhaps decisive, role in weakening the Aztec ability to fight. The strategic alliances Cortés forged with other native peoples were absolutely critical to his success. The internal divisions and resentments within the Aztec Empire made it vulnerable to collapse. Spanish weaponry, including steel, guns, and horses, provided a significant tactical advantage. Leadership and unwavering determination of Hernán Cortés were also key factors in the Spanish victory. In the aftermath, the Spanish began the process of dismantling the remnants of Aztec society. They built their new capital, Mexico City, directly on the ruins of Tenochtitlan. The fall of the Aztec Empire was a pivotal event that reshaped the history of the Americas forever. The Aztec civilization, with its unique art, science, and philosophy, was systematically suppressed. The population of Mesoamerica declined catastrophically due to disease and the brutality of the conquest. The conquest ushered in 3 centuries of Spanish colonial rule in the region. The story of the fall is one of cultural collision, ambition, disease, and betrayal. It highlights the fragility of even the most powerful empires in the face of unexpected threats. The legacy of the conquest is complex and continues to influence the culture and identity of modern Mexico. The initial Spanish force was astonishingly small for the task it would eventually accomplish. Moctezuma's belief that Cortés might be the returning god, Quetzalcoatl, complicated his initial response. The Spanish were horrified by the Aztec practice of human sacrifice, which they used to justify their conquest. The sound and smoke of Spanish cannons, though few, had a profound psychological impact on Aztec warriors. Horses, which were unknown in the Americas, were terrifying to the Aztecs, who at first thought horse and rider were one being. The political situation in Tenochtitlan was already tense before the Spanish arrived, with factions vying for influence. Alvarado's massacre at the Great Temple destroyed any possibility of a peaceful coexistence. The Aztecs' traditional, ritualistic style of warfare, focused on capturing enemies for sacrifice, was a disadvantage. In contrast, the Spanish fought a war of total annihilation, aiming to kill as many of the enemy as possible. During the siege, the Aztecs built barricades and dug pits to counter the Spanish cavalry. The capture of a Spanish banner during one battle gave the Aztecs a brief, but significant, morale boost. Cortés himself was nearly captured and sacrificed on several occasions during the brutal fighting. The stench of death from the siege was said to be overwhelming, covering the entire valley of Mexico. Many of the Tlaxcalan allies saw the conquest as their own victory, a settling of old scores. After the fall, Cuauhtémoc was initially treated with respect by Cortés, who wanted him to reveal the location of hidden gold. Later, The last Aztec emperor was tortured, his feet burned, in a futile attempt to make him reveal treasure. The intricate system of Aztec aqueducts that brought fresh water to the city was one of the first targets of the siege. The floating gardens, or chinampas, which supplied much of the city's food, became battlegrounds. The loss of their religious idols and the destruction of the Templo Mayor was a profound spiritual blow to the Aztecs. The Spanish victory was not just a military one, but a biological and psychological one as well. The story was recorded from both Spanish and Aztec perspectives, offering different views of the events. The Florentine Codex, compiled by Bernardino de Sahagún, is one of the most important sources for the Aztec account. The conquest of the Aztec Empire opened the door for the Spanish colonization of the rest of Central and South America. The introduction of European livestock like pigs, cattle, and sheep fundamentally changed the ecology of the region. The fusion of Spanish and indigenous cultures created a new, unique mestizo identity. The gold and silver extracted from the former Aztec lands fueled the Spanish Empire for generations. The fall of Tenochtitlan remains one of the most dramatic and consequential events in world history. The initial Spanish landing party was a diverse group of veterans, adventurers, and men seeking fortune. Aztec spies and runners maintained a constant flow of information to Moctezuma, reporting on every Spanish movement. The Totonacs of Cempoala were the first native group to ally with Cortés, complaining bitterly of Aztec oppression. Psychological warfare employed by Cortés, such as displaying his horses and firing cannons, was highly effective. The Aztec social structure was highly stratified, with a ruling class of nobles and priests who were decimated by the war. During the Noche Triste, many conquistadors drowned because they were weighed down by the gold they refused to abandon. The Battle of Otumba, fought during the retreat, was a miraculous victory for the exhausted Spanish against overwhelming odds. The smallpox epidemic created a leadership vacuum that the Aztecs struggled to fill effectively. The reassembly of the brigantines on the shores of Lake Texcoco was a monumental feat of engineering and labor. Aztec priests tried to rally their warriors by promising divine intervention that never came. The final surrender was not a single event, but a slow, agonizing collapse of the city's defenses. Fall of the empire was not just the end of a state, but the shattering of a cosmos and a way of understanding the world.